Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the members for inviting me to speak and to say what an honor it is to do so. Firstly, I wish to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people and recognize that Canada's oil sands reside on Treaty 8 territories, home of the Cree and Dene-Sioux-LNA peoples, and the unceded territory of the Métis peoples and of the lower Athabasca region. I want to state clearly and unequivocally that climate change is absolutely the most critical and existential issue of our time. I'm often reminded of the Indigenous proverb, we do not inherit this land from our ancestors, but instead borrow it from future generations. It is imperative public policy and private priorities focus on reducing the impact of industrial emissions, while at the same time understanding that these topics affect many people's livelihoods. Understanding the micro-level individual effects of these policies is crucial for developing public policy that garners public support, ensuring the long-term stability businesses need to make these transformational investments. I've been lucky in my career to hold different roles in corporate finance within the resource industry. This includes time in investment banking at a Canadian bank, at a prominent Canadian pension plan, as well as now leading a clean technology innovator. As a young person, I've often struggled with my conscience being part of an industry often labeled as dirty. As my career progressed, I realized that it would be easy to leave the industry, but simply ignoring the problem, including through actions such as divestment, won't solve it, and instead we need to constructively work on solutions. Specifically, fossil fuel use is a global demand-side challenge versus a supply-side issue. By this I mean, as long as the world continues to need energy, the world is going to look for sources for that energy. Today, over 50% of that energy comes from fossil fuels, with Canada making up just 6% of global oil supply. Just imagine if tonight every gas station was out of fuel. The entire country would grind to a halt. Think about any disaster. The first place people rush to are gas stations. Energy is vital to human civilization. While we have made impressive gains in renewable power, they collectively make up only 17% of the world's energy needs today. From a Canadian perspective, if we turn off the tap in Canada and abandon the industry and those that work in it, we will see other sources of fossil fuels replace our production. This alternative production will shift to other countries with worse environmental standards than Canada, where improvements are unlikely, especially in regards to decarbonization. The sector also employs over 900,000 people, which means there are hundreds of thousands of families, many of whom are Indigenous and from Western Canada, and whose lives are dependent on a healthy Canadian oil and gas sector. At the same time, we must acknowledge that this sector is the single largest source of Canadian emissions today at over 30%. This means we need to invest in solutions for the problems facing our energy industry, including carbon emissions, but also other key issues such as oil sands tailings ponds. We have the ability to continue to deliver the energy the world needs while minimizing its impact as the world transitions. This is the critical piece to me. We are in an energy transition that may span decades, and we must utilize technology to improve our energy industry instead of simply ignoring it in the short term. At CVW CleanTech, we have a ready-to-deploy technology to reprocess the waste or tailings from mining oil sands to recover additional hydrocarbons as well as critical minerals including titanium, zircon, and rare earth elements. These critical minerals are central to the energy transition and national security that impact things like nuclear energy, electric vehicles, renewable power, and the aerospace industry. By recovering additional oil lost in the oil sands mining process, we also recover an important resource that would otherwise be lost to tailings ponds, preventing an environmental liability for future generations. Oil sands tailings ponds are also the single largest source of fugitive methane emissions in Canada and potentially the world. By recovering these hydrocarbons, we remove the substrate from subsequent methanogenesis, reducing those fugitive methane emissions by over 90%, oil sands emissions by 5 to 10%, and effectively reducing Canada's emissions by 0.5%. Our company has developed this Made in Canada technology through support from both the Alberta and federal governments, which highlights the important role government plays in helping drive innovation forward. We recently announced a partnership with 4 Indigenous communities in the Treaty 8 region, and we are appreciative of our Indigenous partners trusting us to move forward this important technology, which aligns with their concerns of air and water quality in the region. This underscores another important topic, the fact that economic reconciliation with many Indigenous communities, especially in Western Canada, is intertwined with the success of our resource industries. Industry's lack of implementation of this ready-to-deploy technology highlights the gap that exists between innovation, which is strong in Canada, and commercialization, where the country struggles. The thought that I would like to leave you with is that public policy initiatives must be designed to drive sector-wide innovation aimed at reducing emissions, both through regulatory means pushing the industry to deploy feasible solutions, while also providing incentives, such as the announced ITCs, that aren't fixated on the method of carbon reduction, but instead on the reduction themselves. I'm a strong believer that investing in human ingenuity and promoting innovation in Canada will help deliver the solutions we need. Thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.